In this market, it is so common to be caught in a multiple offer situation. So, what's the best way to walk your client through making a competitive offer that they feel comfortable with? Today, we'll be role playing live a multiple offer presentation, essentially walking your client through the different aspects of their offer and how they can make the most competitive offer possible.
But basically, let's say that the condo escalates to the full price or the full $725,000. So you're under contract for $725,000. I pulled the recent sales for you. I think that it's kind of close. We basically, like, this one has a really, really, really updated kitchen. It's like, obviously it's why you love it. It has the most supreme high-end kitchen. So it's going to really depend on if the appraiser thinks that that's worth an extra $25,000 or not. We will do our best to make that case. So we have the option to waive the appraisal, bringing up to a certain amount of difference. So you would cover some of a low appraisal. And then we don't, or you'd want it to just appraise at the sales price. So let me help break this down for you. So we're doing 20% down. So at $725,000, your 20% down payment is $145,000. Based on Alex's estimate, your closing costs were about $21,000. So your total cash required to close, if we escalate to $725,000, based on Alex's estimate, is $166,000. So I personally think, I think when we initially talked, you had $200,000 cash on hand. Is that still correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that leaves about $34,000 that you have left over. And I am not trying to spend your money. So this is your decision. I am just walking you through the scenarios. So now, I don't know that I personally would feel super comfortable just waiving the appraisal contingency outright, because it could put you in a situation where you might have to bring more than $34,000 to closing, in addition to your $166,000. So it is completely up to you. There's probably really two options in my opinion. There's it must appraise at $725,000, or you're willing to contribute a part of this $34,000 extra that you have to make up the difference if the appraisal comes in low. If you have a financing contingency, but you do not have an appraisal contingency, essentially all you're doing is just removing the option to go back to the seller and ask them to lower the price. Right. So if you're including a financing contingency, you should always include an appraisal contingency. It's just, it makes no sense to not have it. And some agents think that's like a tricky way to make their offer more competitive, but I actually don't think that makes it competitive at all. It just makes it look like you don't know what you're doing. It's all explaining it to your client. And like, so much of this is like, how do you explain the options? Because it is their decision and what they feel comfortable with. Like, but it's important to explain it, because if you don't explain it, you're going to just keep writing offers that don't get accepted and wasting your time when maybe your client was willing to do this all along. You just didn't explain the option to them. Great. You're willing to bring $17,000 of the difference. That's awesome. I think that really will help. In terms of contingency, Alex said he can get the appraisal back within 14 days. So that's what we're going to put. So the property is vacant, which means that they probably want a pretty quick closing. Tell me, how do you feel about, Alex said he can close as quick as 28 days. So how do you feel about a 28-day closing? Would that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Let's do 3. I don't know if these are real dates, but I'm just gonna throw them in. Probably don't need to do a seller rent back since it's vacant, so we can skip that. So we're just gonna give them a quick, clean close. Letter to the seller. If you would like to write one, it might be helpful. Just expressing your interest in the condo. For your buyer financial information sheet, this might be helpful, especially since you have some assets on hand. It's totally up to you and you're like, whether you feel comfortable sharing that information, but I can at least send the PDF to you so you can take a look and just see what kind of information's on there.
Yeah.
And then for proof of assets, if you wanted to go an additional step to like prove what's on the buyer financial information sheet, you could provide a copy of wherever your down payment and closing costs are coming from. So like whether that's like a bank statement or investment account where you like black out the sensitive information, but just to show them that you are a real, Alex has already confirmed all of this, but just to give them extra reassurances. All right, so to sum it up, we will escalate to 725 in 50 to 50 increments. I am going to schedule a time for us to chat with Alex later this afternoon to chat about the financing approval and what we feel comfortable with there. But we decided on the EMD of 20,000 for now. Again, this is TBD pending our conversation with Alex. We're waiving the inspection contingency, so I'll make sure that we get the inspection scheduled before the review offers. We've agreed to bring up to a $17,000 difference if the appraisal comes in lower. 14 days for the appraisal contingency and settlement on March 14th. And then for attachments, we will include letter to the seller. I'll get you that template. The buyer financial information sheet, we'll also send that along, and then proof of assets.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is that you control the process and the information, and your client controls the decision. You never want to be pushing them into something that they don't feel comfortable with, but you want to make sure that they understand all of their options so they can assess the risk and assess what makes the most sense for their situation. So hopefully this was helpful and results in you winning more offers for your client.